So we're here to solve this castle wall puzzle by Murat. If you haven't done castle wall puzzles in a while, some of the early steps you should always look at are really where clues change in the color of their background. That's a sign that the loop is passing by those spots. Another way to think of that is if I think the outside of the loop is black and the inside of the loop is white, then around any of these cells, sort of reaching half a unit into the next space, is going to be either a white or black area. And so you'd see, like, between these two clues, the outside of the loop is below this line and the inside is inside this line. But if this segment didn't exist, you couldn't be both outside and inside the loop. On the other side of the grid, logic like that will just tell us that the outside of the loop will span both of these. We couldn't cross this line and have the outside be on the top and on the bottom. Parallel to that is in these two cells, we're going to need to be coming in with one end and out with one end, so that the outside of the loop is over here and the inside is on the lower left. Similarly, inside is lower left, outside of the loop lower right. And while those are the initial castle wall steps to get started, I think the critical observations in this puzzle come from first the two white clues. They have a rather large size and a rather short distance. There are 4 potential line segments here. We're going to use 3 of them. 4 potential line segments here. We're going to use 3 of them. Note that we have to use at least one of these and at least one of these. So the loop will use this cell and turn. I kind of use this dot notation to mean turn right here. But to be able to get to 3 loop ends in this column and this row, we need to use these segments. A similarly large clue is this 5 coming down, which has 6 potential ends to use, but we'll only be able to use one of these 2, so we'll use the other 4 and one of these to get set. So the next deduction I was able to make, and it was really about knowing I needed an end coming out here, was to see that with this one down arrow, we can sort of block this channel off. If this loop end came straight down, it would have to use 2 line segments. So it comes across, and we can then shade along the edge of the loop here and see that we have black hitting white, and we are forced, just to have inside and outside working, to have these ends on other sides. This is some of the neat topology that comes up in castle wall puzzles. I'm sure it's one of the reasons Palmer designed the grid, since he's a mathematician into topology of loops and paths a lot. And so it really comes out in this puzzle style sense of inside-outside with steps like this. And once we make this turn, we now see that this is all inside of the loop. This comes down, this comes over. We can look at this end here and see if it went this way, it would have to come up twice, so it's going to come to the left. It's going to come up like this. And shade that. The next observation, we need to get to 3 using that clue. This has only this option. These ends can't come to the right or they'll get stranded. We get to a spot like this, and we've used this clue, this clue, this clue. We haven't used this clue yet, but what I see is there are 2 ends potentially left for it to use, so it's going to come up to this cell, it's going to come out there. I'm not sure if that'll be terrifically helpful. This clue has 1, 2, 3 potential segments for it, so I'll mark those in. Get to this. We have clues to use in the future, like 2 up. They have been spent. We need 1 more in this section. We have a lot to do with this clue. I think the next place, and this was the first time I saw this puzzle sign, it took me a long time to see, but it really has to do with how the loop is going to need to get into this section up here, and particularly that this clue is on the outside of the loop. That means if any loop segments are on the right here, you need to have 2 loop segments coming in. Let's think about that. Let me present it this way. For this 4 left to be fulfilled, at least some loop segments up here, so we do know we need to come up to the top. There are 2 options for these segments down here. Either we have the two ends connecting below, which means that there are 0 ends coming up from the side, which would mean that there have to be ends over like this. Or if this comes across, again, to keep the outside of the loop working here, these two ends come up, and now we have two ends that can't close themselves, but again have to come over to the right side here. So the general deduction I need you to see is that because the loop will be using some of the space, and because these ends themselves can't get up without using the space on the right, you need to have a bit of loop coming up on the right side. And it has to still keep the clues outside that are outside. And it's not just that a bit of these come up, these ends just actually can't close off themselves. These are going to have to come in this end and this end, as so to form the loop. So drawing in these 6 line segments, in particular the 4 in this last column that force this shape based on that clue, give you this. We're still not set to be able to close off these segments. We need to be reaching up to this space first. So to get to here, we haven't decided yet how these go, but I can now fulfill this 3 right clue. It needs to use all the remaining segments now, and it can't come over to this cell. Now this 6 up clue has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential spots. Only one of these 2 will be used, so the other 5 are forced, and then there's a choice here. Just tracking out what we see for those, we get notation like this. We now, I guess, should come back to thinking about these 2 ends. Remember, we talked about how one scenario is they both come down. That looks okay. The other scenario is that they both go up. If they both go up, this end is now going to close up over here, and that's going to terminate the loop prematurely. So this comes down as so. This end then, for similar reasoning, can't come left because it's going to reach up and hit that spot, so it's going to come to the right. We now can't use these cells. We also can't use these cells, so getting 2 to the right has to come like this. To get 4 to the left up here, it's actually easy right now. You can see it's this. The only way this can go is down. We've now fulfilled 3 up as a clue. Of course, is this. These ends don't close. And then as a last clue to fulfill, we need to use 3 in this column. And that's going to go like so until we finish this puzzle. So we haven't used Castle Wall on the site for a while, but it's a really fascinating style. It's really a great puzzle when designed well. This starts off with pretty typical Castle Wall steps, but really takes advantage of both this kind of one end up left, one end down right, as well as these clues pointing in this way to start to resolve over here. And then the aha moment I really appreciated was this sense that the loop has to reach up along the right border and not touch itself. So this section of logic that comes in here was something that took me a while to see, but once I found it was quite brilliant. So hopefully you learned something about this style. Hopefully you enjoyed the Castle Wall puzzles this week, and we'll have some more of them soon.